Ha ha! Hey, what is going on, crypto people? Bam. Where do we go from here? Crypto's bleeding. People are emotional. In the last, 24, 36 hours, a prominent XRP community builder got liquidated and lost his XRP. That's not gossip. That's not drama. That is a warning label for the entire XRP and FLR community, which is mainly my audience. Because the market doesn't care if you're a builder. They don't care if you're a analyst. They don't care. The market doesn't care if you're a good person or a long time holder. If you're overexposed or leveraged at the wrong time because you violated the principles, the market will humble you. So today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to use this episode from Bankless with Michael Nadeau, who called the risk off move early, like our guy, blockchain backer, called it early. Remember, everyone thought blockchain backer was cray cray. Remember, Michael Nadeau, same thing. So, and I'm going to translate this for XRP and FLR survival language. I'm going to cover some interesting things. So, appreciate you guys checking in. Happy freaking Friday to each and every one of you. I just want to note as well, this is not about trying to throw shade at anyone, right? Liquidation is brutal, but I think it's important to get the lesson here for sure. Do me a favor, hit that like button on the way in. That'd be super duper dope if you could do that. You know how we do? We always like to have just as many likes as we have viewers in the stream. Make sure my chat is live as well. This is an interesting one. This is a tough video to do as well because no one likes to see that kind of thing happen. I have my reasons for, for that, for why it could have happened, but and I'm going to share some just macro for why it happened or could have happened as well. But on this channel we talk DeFi, we do DeFi. We talk lending and borrowing, we do lending and borrowing. But there's principles to that, foundational principles that if you break them, the market, can get you. And unfortunately, our guy was got, you know. Yeah, unfortunately, that happens. So do me a favor again, hit that like button on the way in. That'd be super duper dope. If you could do that, happy Friday. What a crazy time to be an early adopter in this new asset class that is a digital asset space. What's going on, B. Johnson? How are you, bro? Good afternoon to you, sir. Appreciate you checking in. Interesting time. For sure. The last 24, 36 hours, 24, 40 hours. Crazy. I mean, crazy. People are scrambling. It was crazy. I was scrambling. It's crazy. It was really, really crazy. And I think this live stream is important for lessons, for sure. This is not just about liquidation. This is about lessons that we're going to cover this digital asset space that a lot of people missed, didn't really understand it. There was a point in that interview that I was like, what? I never would have thought about that ever. And Michael brought up a good point, so I'm going to share that with you guys as well. It was a really, really good point. I was like, I would have never thought about that ever. So do me a favor, drop a one in the chat if you've ever round tripped profits. If you've ever round trip profits. Drop a one in the chat if you've ever round trip profits. Do me a favor and do that. And do me a favor, drop a two if you've ever panic sold at the bottom. A lot of that happened in the last 24, 48 hours. Lots of that. And do me a favor, drop a 3 if you've ever used leveraged or thought about it. Again, drop a 1 in the chat if you've ever round trip profits. I think we have to start with being honest with ourselves first. If we don't do that, if we're hiding behind the laptop and not owning up, how can we learn? If we're not owning up that the fact that we have round trip profits before, how can you get better? How can you avoid making that mistake again? So drop a 1 in the chat if you ever round trip profits. Drop a 2 in the chat if you ever panic sold at the bottom. And drop a 3 if you've ever used leverage or thought about using leverage. So one might say this is a liquidation slant a round trip episode. I want you to just understand something. Most people don't lose in crypto because they picked the wrong coin. They lose because of behavior. And the two biggest killers are leverage and round tripping gains. And if I had to say which one happens more, like in how often, it would have to be round tripping gains, in my opinion. Because most people don't do leverage. A lot of people do leverage, but most people in crypto don't do leverage. Even though it's, in terms of overall volume, you can see billions of dollars in liquidations. And when you combine those two, that's how someone can be right long term and still get wiped out. It's like having a winning lottery ticket, but the expiration date hits before you can cash in. Again, I'm going to ask this question. I think it's important. And then I'm going to go to the chat and read some of the responses. Just be real. How many of y'all are holding bags you swore you would take profits on, but you didn't? You could be listening to a YouTuber telling you about 4-figure XRP and different things like that. So just be real. How many of y'all are holding bags you swore you would take profit on, but you didn't? What's going on, Devon Steve? How are you, bro? Appreciate you checking in, sir. Yeah, got to be. It's just it's time to be honest with ourselves. I don't think this right. Got to be honest with yourself. What's going on, Johnny? How are you, bro? How can we get better? How can we improve? If we're not willing to do that, so the XRP community builder who unfortunately was liquidated was Panos, and now Panos he shared that on X. Panos is one of the creators of the Anados Dex, Anados.finance. Long time community value add, XRP community value add, right? And unfortunately got liquidated. I didn't read the article to see how, kind of how things happened, but why they happened. But he did share that, and he was sharing that he got liquidated for people to get a lesson from that, right? So I'm not here to shame anybody. Builders are the reasons the ecosystems grow. Bottom line. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Because if it happened to someone experienced, it can happen to anybody. And here's one of the lessons. A liquidation is not just a loss. A liquidation is the market taking your coins away because you borrowed exposure. And here's what I'll add to that. You violated the principles of lending and borrowing. It's funny because in the lending and borrowing space, I hear all the time that some people prefer the borrow with centralized places, or because it's a set payment and a set payment date, and they can't go beyond the LTV. in a decentralized manner and decentralized platforms, you can go to the LTV, whatever, right? But here's the thing. If you have a fundamental principle behind lending and borrowing, and you know what a sound one is, you just in practice, you don't violate it. In practice, you don't violate it. If it's 40%, don't violate it. What do I mean by that? If the market turns, if for some reason it goes to 50, you have to take care of it. You got to get it back to 40 or to 30. And what happens, unfortunately, is when things are going good or things are going a little bit better than what you thought, and you see that LTV, you're thinking, oh, this is a little bit better than I thought. It's going to get even better. And the LTV will go down on its own. I won't have to do anything. And that's violating the principle. And what happens is you can get away with it 2 or 3 times or 4 times. And then that last time, when the LTV was more than 50 or 60%, you thought the market would take care of you. And instantly was wiped out. It takes an hour, 2. And if you're not positioned correctly with capital on the sidelines, or even worse, you borrowed against all of your asset, all of your long-term exposure, all of it, not 10%, 5%, or 20%, 85, 90% of your long-term holding, you borrowed against it. You put that at risk. A lot of times, what I've noticed in the DeFi space is they say, oh, well, I'm at 45, I'm at 50%. I came across this project. It's AI, it's going to be happening. I got extra cash. And I bought the new project. I bought into the new exposure. And you put your assets at risk. Because with the extra cash, with the stables that you might have had on the sideline, you took new exposure. And you put those borrowed assets at risk. Happens all the time. Because the principle is violated. If it's 30 to 40%, that's what it is. You don't violate the principle, right? Leverage doesn't just increase your upside, it creates a deadline. Let me say that again. Leverage doesn't just increase your upside, it creates a deadline. Why? Because the market cycles are the market cycles. It's not up into the moon for forever. This unexpected volatility, unexpected market forces. So, if you've never been liquidated, type safe in the chat. I really want to know about that. It's really, really important you guys participate here. And if you're watching this on replay, if you've never been liquidated, type safe in the chat. And if you have, type learned in the chat. Like for me, people use the word liquidation, but in the end, losing all your assets is losing all your assets. People use the term liquidation. You should never borrow against your crypto. But in the end, losing your assets is losing your assets. And what do I mean by that? I was never liquidated, ever. But I lost my assets. There's no liquidation. It was a company. It had 1 or 2 people go astray. Next thing you know, they're $2 billion in the hole. I met my obligations, always. But losing your assets is losing your assets. Right? I want to share something because kind of the inspiration for this video was based on this live stream here. Let me share this with you guys. Bankless podcast. I saw my guy, who was it? Jung Link shared this. He shared a video. Just shared that this interview took place on the Bankless and the DeFi report. I guess they got a YouTube channel now. Bankless and the DeFi report. This is Michael Nadeau here. Michael Nadeau went risk off in October, which is I think around the same time that blockchain backer went risk off, and has been targeting Bitcoin's fair value near $65,000. I know he called for 75K and he called for 65K when they were talking before. It's a really smart guy. Really, really smart. Really, really smart guy. I want to share just a clip from that. And we'll just take a listen to what he says here, because I think it's important for learning. If we don't, I say this all the time on the channel. A lot of times XRP holders, they are just kind of in this bubble, and they need to pop their head outside that bubble and take a look around, expand their knowledge. Let's do this. Oh, I guess I can't do that because then I can't click it. Let's do this. Metrics for Bitcoin's recovery. This. Why did that not go? Let's go 23, 32. Didn't do it. All right.
I've been actually keeping a pretty close eye on this because I'm trying to see if long-term holders are stepping in and buying the
pull metrics. We haven't hit the things yet that you're hoping to hit. Of course, we talked about price earlier this episode where 65K, you said repeatedly, is kind of fair market value. You think we're still above that, maybe a lot closer than when we started the
So just for context, this was published on the 3rd of February. Obviously, the interview took place a lot before, before that. So just for context.
Comes to Bitcoin cycle metrics, we haven't hit the things yet that you're hoping to hit. Of course, we talked about price earlier this episode where 65K, you said repeatedly, is kind of fair market value. You think we're still above that, maybe a lot closer than when we started this podcast though, Mike. But what other things have yet to be hit, and are you looking to be hit before you sort of feel comfortable going risk on?
Yeah, so definitely getting close and shifting closer to a risk on stance. When we look at like the realized price for Bitcoin, it's kind of the proxy for the average cost of all the coins in circulation, and we're still above that. It's around 58K. We look for that to get down to par with the realized price, with the market price at the realized price. We're still at about 1.3. And this table here, when you look at the far right side that says today, what we're sort of trying to do is see those numbers start to line up more where we were in the early bull. So you can see we're still a little bit off. We went below the realized price in the last bear market, still off of that. We're looking at the supply, held by long-term holders, and I've been actually keeping a pretty close eye on this and trying to see if long-term holders are stepping in and buying the weakness in the market right now. And I'm not seeing it just yet. I'm actually seeing them looking like they're joining the selling currently. So I'm looking to see like that sort of bottom out at some point and set a base, healthier base in terms of market structure for us to kind of come out and go into more of an expansion mode at some point here. Long-term holders and loss, this is something we keep an eye on. It typically goes to zero, at the peak of a market, which happened again in this cycle. And during bear markets, you can see that number rise all the way up to 35 to 40%. We're at 19% in terms of long-term holders in loss.
Actually, on that really quick, another way to look at something similar is the cost basis levels, right?
Yeah, this is important. What we're doing here is we want to understand the health of the market structure for Bitcoin. And, we just went through 2025. It was a year where Bitcoin was down, 9%, but we were up at pretty elevated levels for most of the year. And so basically everybody that came in to Bitcoin over last year is underwater on their holdings. and about 42% of the supply is at levels above 78,000. So why is that interesting? Because these are potentially newer sort of holders of Bitcoin that have come in over the last year. And we've talked about this idea of just why are Bitcoin bear markets so like nasty? Part of it is the mimetic nature of these assets and how narratives can really drive things. So price comes down and everyone starts to look around and wonder, is everything that I believed a year ago still true? A year ago we were talking about Bitcoin strategic reserves, and we were talking about the financialization of Bitcoin and all the, regulation, all of these things that were very bullish. And that was sort of the mood of the market. And now price is dropping and the discussion is more about, quantum FUD and Michael Saylor's cost basis and things.
Yep. It's a very, 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 very good point that he talks about, because it's the psychology of the market. Ultimately, it's the psychology of the market, right? So let's say Michael, I said this, he's not famous because he made one lucky call. Again, this was posted. The interview was when Bitcoin was 80 something thousand, right? When he was doing the interview. Right. So he's not famous because he made a lucky call, because it did eventually get to both 75,000 and obviously 65,000 as well. He's respected because he's looking at structure. He saw three things in October. Leverage was building, more and more people taking leverage. Weak hands at the top. Narratives getting too clean and too confident. Can you call it the President Trump's pump? You could call it the pro crypto Congress, a lot of things, right? But the narratives are getting too clean and too confident, right? And he told us in the community, people watch, that he went 80% cash. Very, very similar to what blockchain backer did when he exited, and everyone thought he was crazy, right? He didn't need to predict every candle, and he didn't need to recognize that this is a fragile. But he needed to recognize, rather, that this is a fragile market. And that is the big lesson, that the market is fragile. The market's fragile. The market's fragile. And because one of the things that all the different narratives, but it's the new people coming in who thought, man, I can't afford Bitcoin at 120 something thousand. Like I can't. No way. They think they can't afford it. So when it got to 70, when it got below 80,000, started getting to 78,000, they thought, I can get some. You see the difference? I can get some. But the conditions for getting to 65 still existed, but they don't see that. Right? New to the market, they don't understand how fragile the market is, right? And for us XRP holders, this is when the timeline is screaming utility and institutions, and it's guaranteed. Ripple making all kind of acquisitions. You understand? Remember? Everybody reporting on all the Ripple acquisitions and what they're going to be doing with institutions and et cetera, et cetera. And people start doing reckless things because they just think, wait a minute. This is it. Liquidity's coming, all these different things. But the principles are violated with the overexposure. And for FOL holders, this is when the yield looks sexy and you start oversizing positions. The next thing you know, you're not investing anymore. You're gambling with conviction. That is the thing that people don't want to kind of admit to themselves. Gambling with convictions. Back when I started DeFi, it was all about narrow ranges and liquidity pools. Do you know that that is not the thing now in DeFi? It is wide ranges. Yeah. Less profit, but safer positions. Feels like long-term play and long-term thinking, right? Think about what he said about the people buying Bitcoin, Michael, at 78,000. It's the new money problem, right? Is they're not early to Bitcoin, they're early on experience. And this is huge. Someone buying Bitcoin at 75,000 because it used to be 125,000. They think they're buying a discount, but the real problem is not that they're early on the entry, they're early on experience. They don't know crypto drawdowns. They don't know. They don't know the feeling. And by the way, this is not just retail. These are some people working with some institutions who are like, screw that. You told me to put 1, 2, 3% in this thing. And look, it's those people too. It's those people too. Hold on a second. It's those people as well. So, got to get that. So, they're early in experience. They don't know crypto drawdowns. They don't know the feeling of watching a chart bleed for weeks. And I know we were excited about more people being able to offer this to their clients. But if they ain't experienced it, they're not used to it. They're not used to it. Right? They don't know the feeling watching a chart bleed for weeks. So for the first time price dips, it's panic sets in. And the panic creates bad decisions. Bad decisions create forced sells. That's what happened. And forced sells creates bottoms. Listen to Blockchain Backer today. He believes we're through most of it, but we still don't know what the bottoms are going to look like, where they're going to form, how they're going to form. We're going to get one bottom, two bottoms, a fake bottom. Hope you guys listen to Blockchain Backer today. And you get this XRP FOMO analogy that happens a bunch. It's like walking into a casino for the first time. You hit one jackpot. Now you think the casino loves you. Then you learn the casino is built on math. It's built on math. Always has been. And most times it's rigged against you. There's principles to winning and lending and borrowing. If you violate them, it can get you. So do me a favor in the chat. If you're new to crypto, just be honest. Just type new in the chat. Let me know. Now, if you've lived through multiple cycles, type vet for veteran, short for veteran. Here's the thing that I've been seeing for a lot of XRP holders, the round trip trap. So let me say something that might sting just a little bit. If you didn't take profit, that was a decision. If you didn't take profit, that was a decision. Even if you never said it out loud. You decided to hold through Ripple's acquisitions, right? Hold through Euphoria. And if you hold through Euphoria with no plan, you will usually hold through pain too. Round tripping is how people work a whole cycle and end up with the same net worth. This is the problem. This is the problem. I don't know how much people were up when BTC was 125K. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but you would know if you were up and how by how much. in crypto, unrealized gains are not gains. They are temptations. And that, I hate to say this, but this is true for XRP. XRP is famous for this. People hold for years, then it finally pumps. And instead of taking a slice, they get hypnotized by what if. And what if is how the market empties your pockets. So let me share a framework for you guys, with you guys. I think it's like kind of like it's 3 buckets and 3 rules. So it's a 3-bucket plan for spot holders, right? Not in leverage, right? It's just kind of a mental model that I recommend. Bucket 1, it's your core bag. This is your long-term conviction. This is what you hold through noise. This should not be used as collateral. This should not be cross-margined, right? And for many of you, that's XRP and maybe some FLR, right? No, the long-term bag, the core bag is just that. Then there's a profit bag. This is where you take slices, not all out, not perfect tops, just slices into strength, into strength. So if you never take profit, you're volunteering to round trip. We'll talk later, another live stream about, okay, I took a profit, I got stables. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Right? Then there's bucket 3, the risk bag. This is where you do your experiments. Like we talk about that 10% bucket. Higher beta plays, smaller positions. If you insist on leverage, it would belong here. Small and controlled. Not your rent money, not your legacy bag. Here's 3 rules. I'll share with you the 3 buckets. Here are the 3 rules. No leverage on legacy bags. Take profit in slices. Always keep dry powder so that the dips are opportunities and not emergencies. People who violate lending and borrow principles, they got a notification that their lend to borrow is at 50%. It's gone past their fundamental 30 to 40%, and they don't do anything about it. Instead, they took the dry powder because of a new project and narrative around a new project. Happens all the time. If you're willing to be honest with yourself, which rule do you violate the most? Rule number 1, no leverage on legacy bags. Rule number 2, take profits in slices, not taking profit. Or rule number 3, always keep dry powder. You have no dry powder. It's important. This is, kind of again, to this particular XRP and FLR community. This is why liquidations happen. And I want everyone to understand it. Leverage is not confidence. Leverage is renting exposure. If you understand it, you understand it. If you don't, you don't. You can't win the game if you don't understand the game. And the rent can spike overnight in minutes. And you could be stuck in exchange heck. You could be stuck in exchange heck, completely beholden to an exchange, taking minutes to hours to complete a transaction. Prices move against you. Your collateral ratio can break. The exchange or protocol doesn't negotiate. Your D app not working. Your Ledger Live app not working. Kraken exchange taking an hour to send a transaction. Coinbase taking 2 hours to send a transaction. On Flare, we love DeFi. I love DeFi. DeFi is a powerful tool. Power tools build houses, and power tools can take off your fingers. So we use them with rules. We practice ergodicity. So do me, I know you guys are going to want to do this one. In the chat, type no deadline if you are spot only. You don't have any leverage positions. You're not lending or borrowing anything. Type no deadline if you're in that position. And do me a favor, type I get it if this leverage explanation that I just shared with you just clicked for you. I hang out with some B5 people. They're in lending and borrowing positions. This last 24 to 36 hours didn't bother them one bit because they have their fundamental principles in place, 30 to 40%, whatever that is for you. Dry powder on the sideline in liquid, easily deployed manner. In an easily deployed manner, not beholden to an exchange, not beholden um, to a bank transfer, any of that nonsense. Right? Remember, the BTC leads, alts bleed harder. BTC leads and the alts bleed harder. Right? Bitcoin is a liquidity thermometer. So even if you're XRP first, you still have to respect Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the liquidity thermometer. When Bitcoin enters wealth destruction, alts usually feel it worse. We all know this. So the goal isn't to call the exact bottom. The goal is to stay solvent. You can't do it if you're violating your rules. The goal is to stay solvent, stay emotionally stable, and have a plan so you could take advantage when the market gives gifts. Anyone peep how quickly? I think we got as low as 60,000, and how quickly it got up to 71,000. But when the buying started, just under 65,000, like around 63. Who was buying? The people who had those principles in place. 60,000 when Bitcoin was 125. Yeah. So this is the XRP FOMO line, I say, because what happens every cycle, people get wiped, then the market turns, and they're watching from the sidelines, yelling manipulation. But that's not the reality. Reality is no, you just got outlasted. Michael Nadeau, blockchain backer, they outlasted a lot of people in the market. So here's my message to the XRP and FLR holders. Conviction is not the problem. Overexposure without principles and leverage are the problem. If you want to build a real wealth in this space, in this ecosystem, you need a profit plan and you need risk rules because the market doesn't reward emotions. It rewards discipline. That is the bottom line. My heart goes out to panels because it's painful. Painful and that was all of his XRP. I lost close to multiple six figures in XRP, but it wasn't all my XRP. Oh man, I forgot to share that video. I hate when I do that without the sound. Forgive me. What's going on, I-Man? How are you? I forgot to share with sound. Ed, go now. What's going on, bro? Appreciate you being here. The real one says user EK68KTU. The real ones are numb to these events. I hear you, my friend. I-Man says, I keep my position at 25% with lots of backup liquidity. Very, very smart. It's not just safe, bro. It's massively smart. Oh, you commented the safe thing. So you guys doing that. Okay. I appreciate you guys commenting the safe there. But that's very smart, I-Man. Very, very smart. It's principles to it. The risk rules are important. What's going on, ET's Ezekiel? Says, good evening, CJ. I just hold my XRP and FLR since a few years. I've never been into DeFi yet. Watched so many Flare community and Mickey B. Fresh videos. Still do not understand it. Oh, wow. Yeah, I hear you, bro. Yeah, I apologize for that video being low like that. Let me know. Comment real quick that if you want to hear that with the sound, and I'll share it. It was only like 3 or 4 minutes. I won't mind sharing it. Just let me know real quick if you want to hear that video. I'll share it with sound. Man says vet OG LOL. Farmer says quit talking about me. All right, King Kibu says he wants to hear it. Anybody else want to hear that? I can play it real quick. It was just 2 or 3 minutes. So I can make sure I share with sound. I always forget to do that. Claude says everything's intact. I'm going to leave the link to that Twitter, and I'll leave the link to the YouTube. The Twitter is kind of is shorter. It's kind of more bookmarked. Let me do this. I'll leave this in the chat. I got to go get my daughter. I leave that in the chat for you, King Kubu. You can check it out. Really, really smart guy. I've listened to him on the Bankless and DeFi report now. I've listened to him probably 4 or 5 times. 4 or 5 times. Really, really smart. And yeah, I'm going to be subscribing to that newsletter as well. When you make sense and some people kind of get things and some people kind of don't get things. If you come across someone who kind of gets it, it's not about the 75 and the 65K call. It's not about that. It's about the mindset and the thinking, the rationale to get to 75 and how you got to the 65. That is the thing. It's not the price call. It's not the price call. It's understanding the market structure and the psychology. And I think that blockchain backer is just another one who's just good at that. Some people are just good at that. And we're blessed to have both blockchain backer and Michael, in my opinion. I haven't looked into the risk finance, RYSK. You talking about that? I haven't looked into that yet. I'll have to see what's going on there with that. All right, fam. So I appreciate you guys checking in. Yeah, tough lesson. And I hope that Panos is going to be able to recover. I know he will. He's smart. He's a sharp guy. Loves the XRP community. Loves the XRPL, and I know he'll bounce back. Right, I know he'll bounce back for sure. All right, fam. Do me a favor, hit that like button on the way out. If you didn't get a chance to do so on the way in, that really, really helps with getting this live stream out to more and more people. Appreciate you guys doing that. And if you happen to be in that 55% or so of people that are hanging out, listening to and watching the Crypto Siege, do me a favor. If you've been enjoying those hangouts, please consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to ring that notification bell, baby, so that you know whenever we go live or whenever we upload a video. I'm going to end this one like I do all my videos and remind you guys of this. Old money doesn't want you to win. But that's okay, though, because you and I, we're already winning. And I would ask you to consider this or perhaps ponder the idea or notion of living your life permissionless. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya. Bye.